In the 5th year after I became a vegetative patient, I awakened. I was the cannon fodder ex-wife in a book. My husband from a marriage alliance was the handsome, wealthy CEO male lead in a second-chance romance story. After I had been unconscious for many years, he broke through every obstacle and brought the poor student female lead he had loved but failed to have back then to his side. This time, everyone assumed they would become a couple. Only my daughter was left all alone to the side. I knew my days were numbered, and I had no heart to care about the entanglement between the male and female leads. I only wanted to tell her, all love in this world exists for reunion. Only parents' love for their child exists for separation. Chapter 1. When I opened my eyes, 5 years had already passed. Lying in the hospital bed, I heard nurses discussing how the relationship between the male and female leads was growing stronger and how they were about to hold a grand wedding. The Mrs. By lying in that bed has been a wife in name only for years. Her family has gone bankrupt too. They'll probably remove her oxygen tube soon. Mr. By and Mary are true love. They dated in high school. He gave up the easy road and endured countless hardships for her. Who would have thought they'd break up and get back together so many times, only to find their way back to each other in the end? It really feels like destiny. Looking around the empty hospital room, I recalled the year I was 21, when I married Alexander By through a business arrangement. After our marriage, we treated each other with respect and became the model couple of our social circle. He gave me all the status and respect befitting Mrs. By. I gave birth to our beautiful, adorable daughter. Then a car accident left me lying unconscious in a hospital bed. I was supposed to die 3 months later, on the eve of the male and female lead's wedding of the century. But during my coma, I had a very long dream. In the dream, my daughter, April, lost her mother at a young age and grew up lonely and depressed. Her father's first love married into the By family with her own daughter and later gave birth to a son. April had once been a treasured heiress, but after losing her mother, she also lost her father's love. As Alexander's stepdaughter, the female lead's daughter became the center of everyone's attention from the day her stepfather began protecting her. After having her fiancé stolen from her yet again, April completely descended into darkness and committed one terrible act after another. Alexander became utterly disappointed in his daughter, sent her overseas, and abandoned her there. She spent the rest of her life in poverty and misery. The dream was so absurd that I practically came back from the dead halfway through. I pulled the 4 needle from my hand. Then I hurried toward my daughter's school. Chapter 2. My daughter had been pushed down a staircase, and everyone said Ava was responsible. Ava was the female lead's daughter, yet she insisted she had never touched April. Several boys in the class backed her up. Some mocked April for not watching where she was walking. Others accused her of throwing herself down the stairs on purpose. They claimed she was jealous because Ava was the class monitor. April was furious, but she was only an 8-year-old girl. Tears streamed down her face in panic, yet no one believed her. My sudden appearance shocked everyone. April could hardly believe her eyes, yet she could not take her gaze away from my face. Alexander had concealed the news that I was in a vegetative state from the public. He also forbade our daughter from visiting me, saying it would leave her with psychological trauma. Seeing her pale little face broke my heart. Before I could pull her into my arms, her homeroom teacher looked at my hospital gown and disheveled appearance with obvious disdain. So you're April's mother? Neither you nor her father ever pick her up from school or attend parent-teacher meetings. I've suspected for a long time that your daughter has psychological issues. Otherwise, why would she keep spreading rumors that her classmates are bullying her? In the novel, after Mary appeared, she tearfully explained that Ava had grown up without a father and lacked any sense of security. Alexander responded by showering the mother and daughter with affection, including personally driving his stepdaughter to and from school, unable to accept another child taking her father away. April shouted at Ava, "That's my dad's car. You're not allowed to ride in it." Mary had always been sensitive about growing up in a slum. Proud and stubborn, she cried and threatened to leave the By family with her daughter. Alexander begged her to stay and gave them many expensive gifts. He did not want his biological daughter to become rude and ill-mannered, abusing her status to get whatever she wanted. From that day forward, he ordered the family driver to take April to school in the cheapest car available and forbade anyone from revealing her true identity. Whenever he had free time, Alexander personally accompanied Mary while taking her daughter to school. When a man loves one woman more, he will often love her child more as well. I could understand that. But what had my daughter done wrong? All April wanted was to be seen, to be valued, and to be accepted unconditionally. An overwhelming sense of unfairness breeds powerful anger, hurt, and jealousy. The moment Ava effortlessly took away the father's love she had longed for all her life, Ava became the physical embodiment of every source of her pain. Chapter 3. When Alexander and Mary arrived, the homeroom teacher was still trying to persuade me to let the matter go and avoid making a scene. She said Ava's father was a powerful CEO who could get whatever he wanted. He was so wealthy that he could buy the entire campus. And even the school's new sports field and academic building had been donated by her family. I asked, "Who told you that?" The teacher pulled Ava forward. "Everyone in the school has seen Alexander driving her to school. He's not someone you can afford to offend. Ava has also said in class that he's her father. She uses her mother's surname." The moment she finished speaking, Alexander and I locked eyes. He stared at me, shock and disbelief surging through his gaze. His voice turned hoarse. "Vanessa, you're awake." Standing beside him, Mary had long shed the shabby appearance that poverty once gave her. Her complexion was rosy and beautiful, and she was adorned with jewelry from head to toe. Unlike me, my skin was pale, my muscles weak and loose. My legs had withered into little more than two thin sticks. Alexander's eyes reddened. Slowly, he raised a hand, as though I were a snowflake that would vanish at the slightest touch. "Honey." I rushed to the hospital as soon as they called me. "Why did you come to the school?" The teacher stared at me in astonishment. Mary dug her nails into her palms, while Ava glared at me with undisguised hatred, pointing at the injuries on April's leg. I said weakly, "Our daughter is being bullied at school, and the homeroom teacher is protecting the bully." Before I could finish speaking, Ava threw herself into her mother's arms and burst into tears. "I didn't do it. My classmates can testify for me." Sniffling pitifully, she turned toward Alexander. "Dad, I never lie. April saw you give me that limited edition fountain pen yesterday." So the implication was obvious. April had framed her out of jealousy. Chapter 4. Sure enough, Alexander's expression instantly darkened. "April, are you trying to set Ava up again?" His voice was stern and cold. My daughter bit her lip hard, wanting to explain, but when she saw the look in her father's eyes, cold, disappointed, as though he were looking at a bad child, the words became trapped in her throat. She could no longer say them. A sharp pain twisted through my heart. To a child, this was not a simple misunderstanding. It was an emotional earthquake. The fact that her father did not believe her was the deepest and most painful wound of all. More than any punishment, it could destroy a child's sense of security. I immediately stepped in front of April, holding her icy little hand. Word by word, I said, "I believe that April would never lie." The small, soft hand in my palm trembled slightly. Alexander tried to pull me aside and explain. This was not the first time something like this had happened. According to him, our daughter had always been prejudiced against Ava. Mary stepped forward to defend her daughter. "Vanessa, I don't believe April intentionally injured herself to frame someone else. But you didn't personally raise her, so you don't understand. Children do lie sometimes." She would not even address me as Mrs. Bai. Her ambitions could not have been more obvious. Seeing Alexander openly support Mary and her daughter, the teacher confidently chose a side, believing she was being clever. "Ava's mother is right. There was a time when April deliberately ruined Ava's paints and then refused to admit it." Ava immediately added, "I already said that April probably didn't do it on purpose. She was just in a bad mood." I glanced at my daughter. Her little face was puffed up with anger like a blowfish. At last, she could no longer hold back her tears. Large droplets rolled down her cheeks one after another. For a child, the most frightening thing is not being falsely accused once. It is realizing that, in this family, false accusations can happen at any moment, and she has no power to fight back. It is the feeling that no matter what she says, no one will believe her. The fear begins to grow inside her. Will Dad scold me again and again? Do I have to tiptoe through life and be careful about everything? What if someone finds another excuse to frame me? What if I am blamed all over again? Chapter 5. I could feel my daughter's fear and anxiety, and I wiped away her burning tears. "April, The truth remains the truth. Even if there are no cameras in the hallway and people give false testimony, you don't need to be afraid. Seeing the certainty and trust written across my face, a faint glimmer of hope appeared in her despairing expression. When the police arrive, just tell them the truth. Mary looked at me in disbelief. You called the police over something this small? Using every ounce of strength left in my body, I lifted my daughter into my arms. My voice became even more resolute. My precious girl has been falsely accused and isolated. Isn't it a mother's duty to stand up for her child? When the entire world stands against your daughter, solving the problem is not enough. You must also show her through your actions. April, you deserve to be protected. Your feelings matter. There is someone in this world who is willing to fight for you until the very end. I wanted to plant that golden shield deep within my daughter's heart, so that one day, when she faced life's storms, it would become her strongest source of strength. The little girl looked up at me. Her eyes sparkled as though stars had fallen into them. Fortunately, the police in this story were not incompetent fools. Through statements and witness interviews, they quickly uncovered the truth. The little boy who had accused my daughter changed his story. He and the others had accepted favors from Ava, and they knew her father was powerful, even without seeing anything themselves. People instinctively sided with the stronger party. Ava's face turned as white as paper as she looked desperately toward her mother for help. Maintaining the image of a loving mother, Mary solemnly declared, I also believe my daughter would never intentionally hurt someone. There must still be some misunderstanding. However, since April was the one who got hurt, Ava should apologize no matter what. She was retreating in order to advance, hoping to brush the matter aside as lightly as possible. When I saw Alexander's expression soften, I sneered inwardly. My daughter was not only facing children her own age, she was also facing someone protected by the status of the female lead. How could she possibly win? The only way was to make the matter impossible to ignore. I wanted to show April that I not only believed her, I could also prove through my actions that lies are like balloons. One poke, and they burst. Chapter 6. Using my authority as a member of the school board, I summoned the principal. Parents who truly love their children plan for their future. Before my daughter had even entered kindergarten, Alexander and I had discussed sending her to Wellington Academy. He had agreed and invested an enormous amount of money into the school. I simply hadn't expected that all of it would end up benefiting someone else. The new principal hurried over. The moment he saw me, he became exceptionally polite and cooperated in every possible way. At last, they discovered a hidden security camera in the building next door. There was no audio, but the footage clearly showed Ava pushing her. Seeing is believing. Ava immediately hid behind her mother, trembling from head to toe. Mary pushed her daughter away and ran out of the classroom in apparent emotional collapse. She seemed even less willing than I, the injured child's mother, to accept that Ava had lied. Alexander hurried after her. Only then did he notice my gaze. Go ahead. She needs you more. He looked at me deeply, his eyes carrying an indescribable emotion. Honey, go home first. I'll explain everything later. I nodded gently, just like the considerate and patient wife I had been 5 years ago, quietly taking care of everything for him. Alexander left the Maybach and the driver for me. He arranged another vehicle to pick up Ava. I smiled faintly and took my daughter's hand as we got into the car. The moment we sat down, however, she burst into heart-wrenching sobs. My heart ached. I gently soothed her emotions. Mom. April called out to me again and again. 5 years of longing and grievance poured out all at once. I held her tightly and kissed her soft forehead. April, my precious daughter. A hug is a form of unconditional acceptance. When a mother's warmth surrounds a child, the message she receives is simple. You do not need to prove your worth. You are already worthy of love exactly as you are. Chapter 7. After crying until her eyes were swollen and red, my daughter finally calmed down. I decided to help her review what had happened. April, let's look at what happened today. When Ava said you were bullying a classmate, what did Mommy do? Mommy didn't argue with her. Instead, Mommy called the police and found the security footage. What happened in the end? She admitted she did it. That's right. Lies are most afraid of evidence. April was a smart child. With my guidance, she began to realize that crying could not solve problems, but there could be a complete chain from lies to truth. As long as she consciously fixed that chain in her mind, she would be better prepared the next time someone falsely accused her. I encouraged my daughter to think further. If today's lie was false, have there been similar situations before? Times when Ava said something. Daddy got angry. You were punished, but you felt you hadn't done anything wrong? There were, she replied softly. She said I pushed her into the swimming pool, but I was only walking by. And another time, she insulted me, and I talked back. But Daddy overheard it. Were there security cameras? She shook her head. Did anyone testify for you? She shook her head again. Mommy wants to ask you a very important question. If she lied today, is it possible that she lied before too? She fell silent. That meant yes, but her father had never believed her. Next, Mommy is going to tell you a story about a credibility account. Everyone carries an account inside their heart. If someone consistently tells the truth, they accumulate a lot of trust points, and people are more willing to believe them. But if someone constantly lies, their account loses trust points, and people stop believing them. Today, Ava used a lie and crossed out some of the trust points in her account. Because she lied, her account became emptier. In the future, won't people be less willing to believe her? Yes. But more importantly, what about your account? I don't have one. Daddy doesn't believe me. Yes, you do. But Ava used lies to steal it from you. She spoke badly about you in front of Daddy, and Daddy believed her. Today, we exposed her lie and took those points back. Everyone saw that she was the one lying, not you. The points in your account will start growing again. That's called being someone who has been proven honest. Trust can be stolen, but it can also be reclaimed. Someone whose honesty has been proven once carries even more credibility than someone who has never had the chance to prove it. In the story, April had been falsely accused countless times. Eventually, whenever someone blamed her for something, she simply gave up and accepted the label. I needed to help her tear that label off completely. April, after everything that happened today, do you still feel like you're the problem? Like people treat you this way because there's something wrong with you? My daughter nodded. But Mommy is telling you now, that's not true. You are an honest child. You didn't do anything wrong. Someone else placed a lie on your shoulders. From today on, if someone says something bad about you again, you can answer them, I'm the person whose honesty has been proven. If it can be proven once, it can be proven 1,000 times. April, let's play a game. Next time Ava says something about you in front of Daddy, what will you do? She thought for a moment. I can tell him she's lied before and that he shouldn't trust her? Very good. But what if Daddy says that was in the past, and this time she might be telling the truth? She hesitated, unsure how to answer. Then you say, Daddy, do you remember when Mommy called the police? She lied. If someone has lied once, then their future claims need evidence before they can be believed. Does she have evidence this time? My daughter's eyes immediately lit up. The truth won't win every single time, but as long as you keep looking for evidence, there is always a chance for the truth to win, and every time the truth wins, it becomes harder for the next lie to stand. After explaining everything, I was exhausted. I collapsed against the back of the chair, breathing heavily. April obediently brought me a glass of milk and even thoughtfully placed a straw inside it. Such a good child. How I wished my daughter could live a happy, simple life while I cleared every obstacle from her path. But if that wasn't possible, then in the little time I had left, I needed to teach her how to hold the tools to clear those obstacles herself. Chapter 8. The Maybach rolled into the driveway. This was the marital home Alexander and I had shared. Now, however, the villa carried traces of a new mistress everywhere. Women's shoes with a flashy, nouveau riche sense of fashion were crammed into the shoe cabinet that once held my custom-made designer collection. There were no fresh flowers on the marble coffee table. Instead, the kitchen, a place I had rarely stepped into, had become someone else's domain. Alexander's parents had been trapped in a cold arranged marriage. Each lived their own separate life. In the novel, it was said that he found the warmth of an ordinary family life with Mary, but the truth was that we had shared many happy moments too. Back then, I had just returned from overseas. I had exceptional looks and came from one of the best families imaginable. Whether it was our interests or our conversations, Alexander and I were remarkably compatible. Before graduating, he openly defied his family. He refused to inherit the traditional family business and instead wanted to build a future with Mary through his own efforts. But youthful stubbornness could not overcome reality. Investors withdrew at the last minute. Core team members gradually left. After his final failure, Mary called him in tears. "I'm too tired. Let's break up." Then she deleted every way of contacting her and went abroad. Alexander's parents mocked him relentlessly. Their words dripped with sarcasm, as if saying they had known this would happen all along. It was around that time that I returned to the country carrying a core computer technology patent. My innovation brought explosive growth to Alexander's technology company. While preparing for our wedding, he transferred ownership of the villa to me and purchased an extraordinarily valuable ruby necklace for me. When our daughter was born, the first person Alexander kissed was me. "Honey, you've worked so hard. I will never let you down for as long as I live." I believed that he was sincere in that moment. It's just that sincerity can change. If I had more time left to live, I would fight for every last thing and leave it all to my daughter. But the most unreasonable thing about fate is that it never gives you a chance to appeal, nor does it give you time to rehearse. Without the protection of a powerful and influential father, April would eventually end up with the same fate she suffered in the original story. I wanted to guide her onto a path that could rewrite her destiny. Chapter 9. Alexander did not return home until late that night. When he failed to find me in the master bedroom, guilt flashed across his face. In the first year of my coma, Mary had returned to the country with her daughter and moved into this villa. I did not argue. Instead, I said magnanimously, "You're a normal man. If you have needs, I can understand that." For once, panic appeared on Alexander's usually composed and aristocratic face. "Vanessa, don't misunderstand. When Mary first came back, her depression was very severe. The doctor said she needed more sunlight, so I gave her the master bedroom. As the male and female leads, the author clearly did not want readers condemning them for having an affair, at least not before I died. Despite countless moments of emotional tension and near-crossed boundaries, they had never officially taken the final step. At the time, if my business hadn't failed, Mary wouldn't have left in anger, married an abusive husband, and developed depression. I owe her for that. I listened quietly, allowing his warm hand to cover my cold, frail fingers. "Alexander, you don't need to explain. That was your past. If there had truly been something between you and her, I never would have become Mrs. By in the first place." Alexander seemed to relax, but then I changed direction. "However, April has always loved you very much, yet you've never taken her to school even once." She heard that girl bragging to her classmates about how her father was named Alexander, powerful enough to buy the entire school, one of the elite figures of high society. April wanted to tell everyone that she was your daughter too, but she had never ridden in your car. You never attended a single parent-teacher meeting. No one believed her. In a child's world, a father's favoritism is their greatest source of confidence. With every sentence I spoke, Alexander's guilt deepened. He had instructed the school not to reveal his relationship with April, claiming that he didn't want his daughter to grow up as a spoiled rich girl. Yet with his own hands, he had pushed her into a corner where no one would stand up for her. "I'm sorry. This is my fault. I promise I'll make things right." Chapter 10. As the male lead, Alexander had many strengths. He was decisive, immensely powerful, and meticulous in everything he did. The very next day, everything belonging to Mary and her daughter was removed from the villa. I casually mentioned that the homeroom teacher had shown favoritism toward Ava. The principal personally made a call and had the teacher dismissed from the profession for her unethical conduct. Alexander arranged a new residence for Mary and transferred her daughter to another school of a slightly lower standard. To support them, he still donated over $30 million. I neither argued nor made a fuss. In families like ours, where both sides came from equally prominent backgrounds, divorce was not a word spoken lightly. In the novel, nearly my entire family was wiped out just to create a major crisis for the villainous female supporting character. When my mother learned that I had become a vegetable, she suffered a fatal heart attack. My father had shared a loving and harmonious marriage with her. After losing her, he no longer had the heart to manage the company. Someone betrayed him by leaking business secrets, and his vast business empire collapsed overnight. Fate could overturn everything with a single gesture. As heartbroken as I was, I could not change what had already happened. What I could do was protect my daughter's rights and future at all costs. Chapter 11. Alexander wanted to persuade me to return to the hospital for treatment, but I refused. Worried about my condition, he brought rehabilitation specialists and an entire medical team into the house, keeping them on standby at all times. I accepted without hesitation. Nothing was more important than staying by my daughter's side. Alexander understood what I wanted. He began spending more time with April and personally drove her to school. One night, while curled up in bed, April whispered to me, "Ava transferred schools." Before she left, she glared at me angrily and got laughed at by the other students. "Does that make you happy?" April nodded. Then she shook her head. A trace of sadness appeared on her face. Dad bought lots of beautiful dresses and jewelry for Ava and Aunt Mary to make up for everything. Half my heart went cold. There would be many more situations like this in the future. A father's favoritism and neglect could make a daughter bury all her grievances deep inside herself. No one would listen. No one would understand. Little by little, she would become quiet, timid, and starved for love. Chapter 12. In the novel, the female lead arranged for a delinquent boy to approach April during high school. The first milk tea of autumn. The first roasted chestnut of winter. Those simple gestures were enough to win her over. Readers praised it as a brilliant emotional strategy. They said winning someone's heart was the highest form of victory, and that the villainous female supporting character deserved what happened to her. April became immersed in a cheap imitation of love. Even though she knew her father would be disappointed, she still made the same choices. Because after losing her mother, she had become an extra person in her own life. Her father had a new family. She was like a piece of luggage left in storage. Someone would occasionally glance at her, confirm she was still there, and then walk away. Over time, she developed a psychological belief. I am not someone worth choosing wholeheartedly, so I shouldn't expect others to choose me wholeheartedly either. The kindness of that delinquent boy felt like an unexpected gift. A bowl of hot Odin at 3 in the morning, a narrow bed in a tiny rented room, a photograph of her eating alone taped to a stained wall. To others, it might have looked shabby, but to her, it meant he was willing to share it with me. Even if that person was wrong for her, he was still the first person who had ever held her tightly. And if he let go, would anyone else ever hold her like that again? She longed to be loved. She longed to be seen. She longed for someone's gaze to remain on her instead of passing right over her towards something else. What she truly wanted was never that bowl of steaming hot Odin. It was the 3 things he gave her. To be remembered. The fact that he appeared at 3 in the morning meant he had been waiting for her. To be included. He shared the Odin he had bought with all the money in his pocket. He shared his tiny bed with her. To be seen. His eyes rested only on her. Alexander had never given her any of those things. So, as her mother, what I needed to do was fill those empty spaces while she was still young, to make sure she never spent her life searching for scraps of affection from the wrong people. Chapter 13. I dismissed the housekeeper who only cooked the meals that Mary and her daughter liked. With an annual salary of over $1 million, I hired Linda, a professionally trained childcare specialist who had spent years serving elite families, and signed her to a 10-year contract. Until April turned 18, she would serve only my daughter. I personally sat down and wrote a list. April doesn't like cilantro, not even a little. When April eats wontons, she only likes pork filling, no shrimp. April has trouble sleeping in unfamiliar places. Whenever she stays somewhere new, she must bring her little blanket. Mommy bought it for her. April is afraid of the dark. Don't turn off all the lights in the villa at night. Leave the hallway light on. I wanted my daughter to feel remembered. Even if one day Mommy can no longer stay by your side, I have already arranged for the whole world to help take care of you. What a child needs is not merely the sentence, "Mommy loves you." She also needs proof. Proof she can hold in her hands and revisit over and over. Proof that years later, in the middle of some lonely night, will still make her nose sting and her eyes burn with tears. Chapter 14. I made an agreement with April. Whenever there was something good, we would split it equally. 1 apple, cut into 2 halves. 1 bowl of noodles, divided into 2 bowls. A small box of premium chocolates brought by visitors for Mommy, 3 pieces for her. 3 pieces for me. April was delighted. She was never a selfish child. Ever since kindergarten, she had loved sharing things with others. But after Ava moved into the house, everything changed. Alexander always said that Ava and her mother were pitiful. Whatever happened, April was expected to give in to her older sister. Beautiful hair clips, expensive jewelry, dolls mommy had bought. Even when Ava damaged them, all she had to do was cry and say she was sorry, and she would be forgiven immediately. Taking advantage of the opportunity, I introduced something new, sharing feelings. Every night before bed, we would each talk about one thing that had made us happy or sad that day. Today, when mommy got her 4, they had to try 3 times before getting the needle in. It hurt. Today at school, some classmates laughed at me because mommy was a vegetable. That made me sad. Then mommy will help you get even. How? I answered with complete seriousness. Tonight I'll go into their dreams and scold their parents. My daughter laughed. If this habit continued long enough, then even after I was gone, April could still talk to my photograph every day, or run to my grave and cry her eyes out when she was angry. She could tell me about one feeling she had experienced that day, because she would believe mommy was listening. Children who grow up sharing their feelings develop a quiet confidence. No matter whether they are happy, angry, sad, or afraid, someone is carrying part of the burden with them. They do not have to shoulder everything alone. Chapter 15. For a brief period, Alexander returned to his family. His sense of morality and upbringing would not allow him to maintain a close relationship with another woman under his wife's watchful eyes. The grand wedding disappeared without a trace, quietly cancelled. At the same time, the news that I had awakened from my vegetative state was also suppressed. Only a small number of people knew. The doctors said I was still extremely weak. This awakening was nothing short of a miracle. Alexander was deeply anxious. Every day, he personally checked with my nutritionists and medical staff about my meals and recovery progress. I gazed at him affectionately. Of course, it wasn't love. The day he brought Mary back into our lives was the day our intimacy truly ended. But that didn't stop me from acting. Guilt handed down like charity was meaningless. In fact, it was an insult. Love could no longer be salvaged. Crying, accusing him, demanding a divorce, none of it would benefit me. But continuing to play the role of a loving wife would allow me to retain influence. Using everything I had learned about business, I quietly began transferring part of the family's resources to my daughter. I needed to ensure that even if Alexander gave her nothing in the future, she would still live comfortably for the rest of her life. But even that was far from enough. Chapter 16. The day Alexander sent a red piano worth over $1 million to the apartment I had prepared for April. Paparazzi happened to capture photos of it. Alexander panicked. Vanessa, I forgot that apartment belonged to you. It was just closer to Ava's school. I can explain the piano too. Ava never had the opportunity to learn when she was little. Mary hopes her daughter can make up for what she missed. He had projected all of his guilt, pity, and desire to compensate Mary onto her daughter. He was trying to create a parallel world. A world where he had never separated from Mary. A world where she had never grown up in a slum. A world where they had met as equals from matching families. In that world, their child would probably look exactly like this. Alexander could grieve for everything an adult woman had lost. Yet he could not see that his own daughter was experiencing loss right in front of him. But I had no intention of confronting him. There was a good chance that I would win the argument and lose the benefits. A man's guilt has an expiration date. He may admit his mistake, but once he does, the guilt is released. And after that release, his willingness to compensate decreases dramatically. Compared to that, I preferred negotiation. What Alexander would never know was that I had hired the paparazzi myself. The purpose was to bring up the trust fund he had promised when April was born. I wanted it transferred into my daughter's name ahead of schedule. He hesitated. It was an enormous amount of cash. I lowered my eyes and revealed a sorrowful expression. The doctors said my body may never fully recover. Our daughter needs certainty in her future. No matter what happens to us later, I want her to have something that nobody can ever take away. Alexander pulled me into his arms. His voice trembled with panic. Vanessa, I won't allow you to leave. Our family has more than enough money. We'll definitely find a way to keep you alive for a long, long time. He held me so tightly, as if he were afraid of losing a priceless treasure. But, Alexander, you have already proven yourself to be someone who cannot be trusted. How could I possibly entrust my daughter to you? Chapter 17. The trust fund, worth more than $500 million, was transferred into April's name. Mary was so furious that she smashed an entire set of cups. She had assumed that as long as she and Alexander reunited, everything would eventually end up in her hands. Who could have imagined that someone would intercept it halfway? The bitterness was impossible to swallow. Jealousy spread through her like wild vines. Yet the female lead understood the male lead better than anyone. She knew Alexander despised greedy and materialistic people. She could not fight. She could not complain, suppressing the storm of emotions inside her. Mary spoke with a mixture of grievance and resignation. Alexander, it's your money. I have no right to interfere. We were just too young back then. If we hadn't separated, I would be the one standing beside you today. The child would have been ours too. In the video sent back by the private investigator, her eyes shimmered with tears. She looked fragile and heartbreakingly vulnerable. I'm not upset about those things. I'm just sad about all the years we lost. I understand that you want to make things up to Miss Vanessa and her daughter now, but I hope you can spare a little attention for Ava and me too. Every word sounded gentle, wronged, and incredibly reasonable. Nothing softens a man's heart more than feeling he has failed the woman he loves. Alexander gave in. He sent countless gifts. He promised to attend a parent-child sports event with Mary and Ava. One hand held Ava's. The other allowed Mary to cling to his arm. Her handbag even hung from the crook of his elbow. They looked exactly like a happy family. Chapter 18. The moment I saw the photos on the school's online forum, I almost laughed despite my anger. April's little pout was big enough to hang 2 fish from it. I rubbed her fluffy hair. Compared to growing up disappointed in her father, compared to spending years hoping he would love her the way he loved Mary and her children, compared to competing for the position of the beloved daughter, it would be kinder, though more painful, to face reality early and loosen the bond tying her self-worth to her father. I gently rubbed her head again. April, there's a hole inside Daddy's heart. He's trying to fill it in his own way. That's not your fault. It's his problem. She looked completely confused. So I explained it differently. Imagine you have a toy that you love very much. One day, it breaks. Would you fix it? Or would you buy a new one? Fix it. Exactly. But Daddy chose to buy a new one. That doesn't mean the old toy wasn't good enough. It just means he doesn't know how to fix things. Am I the toy? No. You are April. No matter whether Daddy knows how to fix things or not, you will always be Mommy's April. I did not make excuses for Alexander, nor did I encourage my daughter to hate him. Instead, I separated his behavior from her worth. Alexander believed that failing to end up with Mary was the greatest regret of his life. Being kind to her daughter had become one way of compensating for that regret. That was a limitation within him, not a flaw within April. From then on, whenever Alexander broke a promise to spend time with Mary and Ava instead, I never said, "Daddy is busy." Instead, I would ask, "April, Daddy made the wrong choice again today. Does that make you sad?" I wanted her to face disappointment directly, to accept that she was not being chosen. She could cry, she could complain, she could bake little strawberry cakes to distract herself, or ride her beloved brown pony around the paddock 10 times to let out her frustration. Anything but bottling it up inside. And I would always tell her, there are many ways to love someone. What Daddy can't give you, Mommy will. And what Mommy can't give you, one day you'll learn to give yourself. Later, when you're older, if you ever meet someone who reminds you of Daddy, be careful, because people like that don't know how to fix broken toys. Chapter 19. April's 9th birthday should have been forgotten. She and Ava shared the same birthday. From the moment Ava entered their lives, what should have been a day celebrating her birth became the loneliest day of April's year. But that was all right. If a miracle had awakened me, then I ought to make it count. I prepared a long guest list and instructed Linda that, in the future, she was to organize April's birthday party every year according to the highest standards, unless April herself no longer wanted one. As Alexander's business empire grew larger and larger, countless people wanted to gain his favor. Every invitation was accepted. The party was magnificent. Dressed like a little princess, April moved gracefully through the crowd, accepting compliments from guests with remarkable poise. The only regret was that Alexander was not there. He had gone to accompany that mother and daughter. Early that morning, Mary claimed she was sick and unable to spend time with Ava. April stood staring at the villa gates for a very long time. Her hopes had been disappointed once again. Yet only a second later, she hugged me and smiled. Daddy went to buy a new toy. I don't blame him. As long as I have Mommy, that's enough. Mommy, Mommy, Mommy. April called for me over and over again, like a stream clinging to the riverbed that had given it life. But streams must eventually separate and flow toward their own vast ocean. As the banquet reached its climax, I took out the priceless 9-eyed sea bead Alexander had bought for me while I was unconscious and placed it around April's neck. A blessing for safety and protection. Someone who knew the truth quietly revealed. Back then, during the car accident, Vanessa threw herself in front of Alexander. That's why she became a vegetable. What sincere love. By tomorrow, the story would appear in newspapers. It would become a celebrated tale of love among wealthy families. Not like in the original story, where my death was reduced to a single sentence and forgotten. This story would become a shield. Years later, whenever someone tried to bully April, there would be people willing to speak for her. Vanessa had loved the CEO of By Group so deeply that she had been willing to die for him. How could Alexander allow anyone to trample on her daughter? 3 pale figures stood at the entrance, unable to resist Mary's pleading. Alexander had originally intended to introduce her daughter to high society. But in that moment, he remembered the truck hurtling toward them. He remembered how I had not hesitated for even a second before sacrificing myself for him. How could he not be moved? To reassure me, Alexander publicly announced that April would be his sole heir, without conflict, without bloodshed. Watching Mary and Ava leave with resentment written all over their faces, I smiled, but there was nothing to celebrate. If I could protect my daughter until she reached adulthood, that would be enough. Chapter 20. In the end, Mary could not bear it. She sent me a message dripping with mockery. Vanessa, I was here first. You're using your illness to drain Alexander dry. Have you ever considered that this is simply karma for your greed? When such enormous wealth slipped through someone's fingers, bitterness was inevitable. I did not argue. I simply made sure Alexander happened to see the message when my phone screen lit up. He took a deep breath, looking as though he wanted to explain. But I spoke first. Alexander, I'm not angry, really. My health is failing. I don't have much time left. You'll have other children in the future. But I only have April. Just like countless divorced couples in the world, men often remarry and have more children. That was simply reality. Alexander broke down in tears. Vanessa, don't say things like that. You're breaking my heart. Once upon a time, we had genuinely loved each other. Many nights, he quietly entered my room. He tucked the blankets around me, kissed my forehead, secretly held me in his arms. As the male lead, Alexander was a deeply emotional man. He was willing to take responsibility for the feelings he had invested. In the original story, if the female lead's influence had not been so overwhelming, if the villainous female supporting character had not become so arrogant and self-destructive, perhaps April would never have walked down a path of no return. But I dared not gamble on that possibility, allowing Alexander to bury his face against my neck. I spoke softly. My father went bankrupt back then. His body stiffened. As a businessman, Alexander had concluded that helping would achieve little and had chosen not to intervene. In the end, he acquired my father's company through a corporate takeover. I asked whether that portion of the assets could be left to April. Consider it a keepsake from her grandparents and her mother. Alexander could not bring himself to refuse. What I needed was simple. I needed every promise written into a contract, stamped with the force of law. Chapter 21. A year passed quickly. The wind carried away the last yellow leaves, and my life slowly burned itself out. Every day, April cried until her eyes resembled those of a little rabbit, red and swollen. She refused to leave the hospital. Over the course of that year, she had grown much taller. Her classmates no longer bullied her. She excelled academically, earning straight A's. Her teachers adored her. Looking at the thick stack of certificates and awards, I smiled with pride. But April cried, like a child about to lose her way. Mommy, mommy, mommy. She whispered the word again and again, like a lost young animal searching desperately for its way home. And I answered every time. Each response was soft enough to shatter, Yet I still had to let go of the hand I wanted to hold forever. What a pity. I would never get to watch my precious daughter grow up. I lowered my eyes. Sadness swelled quietly inside me. But I could not be a fragile mother. April, don't cry. Mommy isn't really gone. I've just moved to a different star. I'll stand on that star and smile. And whenever you look up at the night sky, you'll see me waving hello. April's eyes were red with tears. Her gaze rested on my pale, fragile face, as though she wanted to remember every detail, to store it in her mind, to carve it into her heart, until the eternal starlight finally began to shine. Chapter Epilogue, April. Chapter 1. When I was 18, I met a boy. He pushed a bowl of Odin toward me. I glanced at it and smiled. Thank you, but I don't need it. His eyes filled with surprise and disappointment. In that moment, the thoughts that crossed my mind were not, this person is so kind to me. Finally, someone remembers me. I need to hold on to this opportunity. Instead, I thought, I have already been loved. Loved completely. Loved sincerely. Loved in every small detail. The bowl of pork wontons in the morning sunlight. Half a piece of candy shared after school. The little prince that Mom softly read beside my bed. The love of someone who would hold me even when it hurt. A girl who has experienced that kind of love does not fall in love because of a bowl of Odin. Nor does she need a relationship to fill an emptiness inside her, because that emptiness had already been filled by Mom long ago. Chapter 2. As I grew older, I read many books. I traveled many roads. I met many people. Linda became the estate manager. Every time I came home, the wontons were always pork-filled. No cilantro. No shrimp. At night, the hallway light was always left on. I asked Linda how she remembered all those things. Linda said Mom had instructed her personally. Mom had kept a notebook. On the cover were the words, "Notes about April." The pages had yellowed with age. Her handwriting was weak, but neat, elegant, and clear. Every page recorded details about me. When April is happy, she presses her lips together first. That's her little pride showing through. When April feels wronged, she lowers her head and twists the corner of her clothes without saying a word. Every winter, April's hands and feet become cold. Prepare brown sugar ginger tea in advance. April loves The Little Prince. Her favorite line is, "There may be 5,000 flowers exactly like you in the world, but you alone are my unique rose." I turned the pages one by one. By the third page, I was already crying. Linda asked why. I said, I always thought no one saw me, but Mom did. She saw me all along. Linda gave me a 3-minute hug. That had been one of Mom's little games. Every day after school, after asking me about the happiest and saddest parts of my day, she would hug me tightly, because a hug is the shortest distance between two hearts. Chapter 3. I took out the old wishing jar from my room. Mom used to say our family had plenty of money. There was no need to save coins. Whenever we have a wish, we'll write it on a piece of paper and put it inside. When we've collected enough wishes, we'll make them come true together. Mom, what's your wish? April, where do you want to go? I want to see the stars. Then write this down, watch the stars in the desert. Later, Mom was pushed into that small house with the furnace. After that, I placed one piece of paper into the jar every day. Sometimes it was an excellent report card. Sometimes it was a note about how much I missed her. When I grew up, the jar became completely full. I smashed it open. At the very bottom, I found the very first note. Mom had written, "I want to live. If I can't, then let my daughter see the world for me. By then, I believe she will have become the most wonderful girl on this planet." Linda called a lawyer and handed me a safe. Inside was an entire collection of priceless jewelry. Some had been gifts from my cold and distant grandmother. Some had been left to Mom by my grandmother. Some were rare treasures Dad had bought for Mom. What I never knew was this. Mom had changed the ending of the original story. In that story, the villainous female supporting character became more rebellious as she grew older and got pregnant 3 times by a delinquent boyfriend. The male lead became completely disappointed in her and gave all the jewelry to the gentle and obedient female lead and her daughter. But this time, that ending never happened. Everything belonged to me, to Mom's April, because the jewelry was never merely jewelry. It was the love, protection, and confidence that a mother left behind for her daughter. Chapter 4. Dad married Aunt Mary. There was no grand wedding. Not long afterward, they had a son. Dad broke his promise. He had once said that the bi-family empire would be mine to inherit. But now, he said I was a girl, while my younger brother was a boy. I didn't argue. Instead, I earned admission to an Ivy League university overseas with top grades. I excelled academically and built friendships all over the world. The year I graduated, I returned home for a visit. Dad asked me, "April, do you hate me?" I smiled and shook my head. When Mom woke up, she told me not to resent you. Everyone has the right to pursue their own happiness. There were many more gray hairs at his temples now. His face carried constant worry as he spoke about my younger brother. The boy had been diagnosed with a serious heart condition at 7 years old. He was always sick, always in and out of hospitals. I listened quietly. Then I remembered something. When I was 8 years old, Mom had secretly run out of the hospital. The doctors said she wasn't allowed to leave. She refused to listen. Nurses chased her all the way to the entrance. She even urged the taxi driver to drive faster. At that time, she only had 1 year left to live. Her body was so weak. Many nights, I stopped outside her bedroom door. She was still awake, taking medicine. Her hands trembled so badly that she could barely hold the pills. But for me, Mom dared to climb out of her hospital bed. She dared to go to my school and confront Aunt Mary. She dared to call the police and demand the truth. With a body that was frail and broken, she proved something to me. Never stop believing in fairness simply because the world is unfair. From that moment on, I always believed that there was someone in this world who would do anything for me. Mom became a light that never stopped shining inside my heart. Chapter 5. Eventually, Dad changed his mind. He wanted me to take over the family business after all. I politely declined. Mom once told me, "April, you don't always have to be the good girl." She also told me, "Your father has already proven himself to be someone you can't fully rely on. Keep your eyes open." During university, I used the substantial funds Mom had quietly left for me to invest in an artificial intelligence project developed by one of my classmates. When the AI boom arrived, everything took off. When the wind is strong enough, even pigs can fly. In a remarkably short time, my business surpassed Dad's. He felt proud and guilty. The child I gave the least love to became the most outstanding. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have neglected the child I was supposed to protect most just because of outsiders. A year earlier, Ava had stolen my fiancé. Dad said his stepdaughter had grown arrogant and entitled. She became obsessed with competing over a man. She got pregnant before marriage and became the laughingstock of their social circle. I didn't respond. After all, if someone can be stolen away so easily, what value did he have in the first place? Dad reached out a hand, as though he wanted to cross the years and comfort the little girl who once curled up in a corner, unwanted and unbelieved. I gently stepped away. A wounded expression appeared on his face. "April, you're just like your mother. Graceful, beautiful, kind." I think about her all the time. At the corner of the staircase stood Aunt Mary. She looked exhausted, resentful. She hated my health. She hated my intelligence, because they made her spoiled daughter and her constantly ill son seem painfully ordinary by comparison. She hated Mom too, because the living can never truly compete with the dead. Dad constantly compared them. He would say that a woman from the slums could never compare to a daughter of a distinguished family. But the truth was this: Mom had never wanted to compete with her. During the precious time granted by that miracle, Mom focused on only one thing: proving that I was worthy of being loved. Chapter 6. When it was time to leave, I gently closed the door. "Take care, Dad." Behind me came a choked sigh, filled with regret, filled with remorse. I walked out of the villa and looked up at the sky. There were countless stars overhead, bright and beautiful. I knew one of them was Mom. I didn't know which one, but every star felt like her. I opened my arms toward the night sky and gave it a hug. The last time I hugged Mom, she had been so thin that her bones pressed painfully against me. Yet she still smiled and said, "Even if it hurts, hugs are worth it." The wind brushed against my damp cheeks, softly, gently, like Mom's hand stroking my face. The branches of the parasol trees stretched endlessly toward the heavens, and love flowed straight through my heart. I suddenly remembered a saying: God could not be everywhere, so he created mothers.